Hi, I'm Dana and we're settling in with my giant bucket of tea once again because I thought we'd do another longer video. I do enjoy being able to sort of zero in on a chunk of something and give my full opinion and like really ramble about it. I really like that aspect of making videos. It's most of what I do. But having made the video, I'll link it here since I'm telling you about it. It was about school. And how much I hated it and all that. So I thought we'd do another one that's sort of encompassing some of the ways that I was raised by my mother and some of the ways that my mother behaved. I spent many years, including on this channel, being like, my parents weren't abusive. Like sometimes they, they tried their best. They did this and they did that and they were trying their best. They weren't abusive. And I can't tell you how many therapists I've had before I even knew I was autistic, where I'd be telling them like, my childhood was really nice. I had a really good childhood. My parents tried really hard. And I would not have ever thought, oh, my parents were abusive. It would have been an insane thing for me to think back in their day. But managing to like free myself from some of those abusive situations, I started to realise how much behaviour just isn't appropriate and is abusive behaviour and isn't any way to be treating anyone. And it was so much of it is stuff that I would very easily brush off. It's quite small things, some of it's bigger stuff, but most of it's quite small. And it's not so much that my mother was this like horrible, terrible person that didn't care about me at all and was the worst mum ever. It was just these small, repeated, constant bits of like micro abuse where I could just never do anything right. And I just constantly felt like I was in the wrong for anything, So this is very much the type of video where I think it will hopefully be helpful to people that are still sort of piecing it together and being like, were my parents abusive? Were my parents this? Were my parents that? And just still trying to figure it out. You can hear what I've figured out and what my experience was, and then pull any bits of it that are similar, anything that prompts you to think about things in your life. I can show you my finished puzzle and you then have an idea of what your finished puzzle might look like. They're not going to be the same. We're doing different puzzles, but you have an idea of what a completed picture will look like. I'm very much not completed. This is still a massive journey for me. I'm still figuring loads of stuff out. But these are the things that I have figured out. I don't have much, but I have that. So we're gonna get into it now. It's editing, Dana. I think you're going to be seeing me a good bit through this video, to be honest with you, because despite it being a really long one, the way my memory kept running out and just like the experience of filming, I feel like I forgot to say quite a few things. So right at the start here, I want to thank whoever it was that on my last long video about school commented with unironic trigger warning for one of the things I was talking about, because that's something I've been slacking on and forgetting about. I think I'm so used to being like, it's the same people that watch my videos, it's the same people that comment, like you guys know me, we have a back and forth to some point. Like I don't want to form a whole parasocial thing, but I've definitely started assuming that the people who watch my videos are people who know my content, and as such I'm like, well, you know what's going to be in here. Like if I'm talking about school or my parents or like my past in general, there's going to be some triggering things. But not everyone that watches my videos is someone that's been here before. So I really should be remembering to add trigger warnings and to let you know what kind of things videos might encompass. So thank you for that comment. And I'm going to try to be remembering to do it at the start of videos. I know some people find it really useless, but personally, as someone who's like been through trauma and experienced things, I find it extremely useful when people include trigger warnings for like anything, be it a YouTube video, be it a play, be it a TV show. I like to know what I'm fucking in for. So as such, we're going to be discussing like eating disorders. There's going to be mentions of self-harm. There is, just please assume that it's going to be triggering, quite frankly. And I'm not going into detail. I'm not trying to make anything triggering. I'm not trying to like, I don't think it's like a horrific thing for anybody to watch one of my videos, but also general topics of things that people struggle with as teenagers, the stereotypical things are things that I struggled with and things that I will mention most probably. I don't remember every word of this hour-long video. But yeah, trigger warning. We're going to discuss some things that are triggering to people. I feel like you deserve to know. And as I said, I'm very much still figuring things out. So this is one that I have very recently been like, actually, that was really fucking shitty. So growing up, I was quite vocal about wanting to be some sort of a performer. I was really into music. I was really into drama. I wanted to act. I wanted to sing. I loved all of that stuff. And as such, I never shut the fuck up about it. And my parents put me into lessons. And that's one of the things where like people are quite often like, you had the privilege of these lessons from your parents. And my brothers brought it up all the time, being like, we didn't get opportunities like that when we were kids. So from the age of like probably 7 or 8, I would go to like various local drama groups and choirs and singing lessons. Like I didn't have like one-to-one tuition. It was never expensive, it was never fancy. It was like little community local things where you'd like pay £2 on the door and you'd go in and do your like 2-hour lesson. And then from the ages of like 14 to 16, Liverpool Institute of Performing Arts, LIPA, has a like teenage program that you can do, and I was convinced that if I went and did it I would get to meet Paul McCartney. So that was my push for being like, Mum, Dad, I need to go to this. And because we were living in Real at the time, they would just send me off on the train to go to Liverpool on a Saturday, go and do my classes, and then get myself home again from the age of 14 to 16, which looking back now is also like, that's a very far way to send a 14-year-old on their own, actually, looking back. Like, I'm not a parent, but I don't think I'd be comfortable with that. I don't think I'd let my daughter go that far on her own at 14. But that's not what we're talking about. Because while it was obviously like, it was a privilege to be able to go to these lessons and to be able to do the thing that I wanted to do and to learn about what I thought my like future career was going to be. And not only was it like very consistently used against me, you know, like if I asked for anything, if I wanted anything, if I needed something, they'd be like, we pay all this money for your lessons. And also I was pointing out how far I had to go, because the fact that we lived in a different postcode area, we didn't have like a Liverpool postcode, meant that we got like quite a heavy reduction on my like place in that school. My parents never paid an awful lot for any of it, because if they'd needed to, I wouldn't have got it, you know? Like there were various, like I was obsessed with Camp Rock at one point, so I found all sorts of different fucking summer schools all over the world that I wanted to go to. I didn't get to go to any of them because they were too expensive, you know? Like it was always like fairly cheap. So it'd be used against me because, well, we do this for you. And it was also, I so often was genuinely humiliated by my mother for trying to practice the things that we were being taught. You know, like we also, that's the thing, is there's a lot of context to these things. That's why I want to do these like sort of longer, more rambly, like not so focused videos, so I can go into the detail and give the context, because that's the stuff that I was needing to figure out to feel like I understood what the fuck was going on and what it really was, you know? I think I was in year 4, however old you are in year 4, that was when they'd first put me into street dance lessons, because that was when they decided that my weight was like genuinely a problem. And it's like, I was a very young child. I only ate the food that they gave me. They gave me packed lunches. It's not even like I could like have chips at lunch at school. Like I got packed lunches of like cucumber sandwiches and stuff like that. Like they were fully in control of every single thing I ate, but it was my fault that I was fat. So they put me into these street dance classes that I did not want to fucking go to. And because I was tall, I was put in with like girls that were I was in like year 4, year 5, and I was put into classes with 16 to 18 year olds because of my height. Those were the girls that I was like on the same height as, and they hated me. I was a literal little child just suddenly put into the middle of them. But it was very much with the message of like, well, you're fat and you need to do something about it, so you're gonna have to go in here and humiliate yourself and like just lose the weight, aren't you? So we were attending like the National Street Dance Championships in Blackpool, and we had this like whole routine that we were doing, and each of us had, like, I don't know how the fuck street dance works. Maybe I'm just explaining what street dance is, but there was one section of the dance where everyone like formed into this little like semicircle, and one at a time we had to go out and like do our solo performance part. And I was fucking petrified. I already didn't want to do the dance with the whole group in front of all these fucking people. I especially didn't want to do my own fucking little solo part. I hated it. I was already just very, very fucking unimpressed by it. And I also massively struggled to learn anything physical, like learning a dance routine, learning where to put my feet, remembering to put my feet in the right place and do my hands at the same time, and also try to fucking smile, and also don't fall over, don't trip, don't bump in. Like I really, really, really fucking struggle. I'm always the one that like the audience can see is not doing it as well as everyone else, and it's really fucking embarrassing. But I was doing it, you know? So there was always pressure, and I knew that I was going to have to do it in front of all these people. So I would repeatedly try to practice this one section of the dance that was going to be the bit that I had to do on my own. I couldn't remember half of the fucking rest of it, and I was like, I can look at other people and try to copy what they're doing for the rest. During this, it's just me. And I can't improvise. I can't just like do a dance if I forget the one I'm meant to be doing. So I need to keep practicing it. And every single time I tried to practice it at home, my mother would make some sort of fucking little comment. If I tried to do it in my room on my own, I'd be getting a shout from downstairs, "What are you doing up there banging around?" I was not allowed to make the sound of like moving my feet and dancing, even though I was also constantly told that I needed to move more and lose weight. So I wasn't allowed to practice this dance up in my room alone. If I went and did it in the living room or in the kitchen or anywhere visible, I'd be told how I wasn't doing it properly. And like, I almost wish that she'd just be like, you're not doing it properly. It was never being told that. She'd be like, is that what the teacher told you to do? Is that what everyone else is doing? You know, stuff like that where like she's not telling me I'm doing it wrong, but she's heavily fucking giving the impression of such. So I was never ever told that I wasn't allowed to practice this dance, but every time I did, I was humiliated for fucking trying. And that was the first time that it happened, because it was the first time that I like had an out of the house thing that I needed to practice for. But the more that I had that type of thing, the more I just could not practice at home. Like I said, I was getting signed up for choir, I was doing a music GCSE, I was getting guitar lessons at one point, I was with Lipper and trying to audition for their choir and various auditions that we had, and I the only times that I got to practice was when I was doing it, because if I tried to sing at home, my mum would be like, do you think you're in key there? Do you want to try that again? That's not the right pitch, is it? Like, anything that I tried to do, and because it was all stuff where like, you could hear me, you can hear that I'm trying to play guitar, you can hear that I'm trying to sing, you can hear that like I said, even if they couldn't see me moving, they'd be like, why are you banging around? I just could not fucking practice anything. But then when it came to the performance and I wasn't as good as like everyone expected me to be, mum would be like, well, you should have practiced, shouldn't you? I didn't see you practicing any. If you'd practiced, you would have been better, but I didn't see you practice, did I? And it's like, well, no, because every time I fucking practice, I get humiliated for doing so. So I don't practice because I don't have anywhere else to go to be able to do it. And there is always someone at home that is going to have something to say. You know, like if it wasn't my mum, it was one of my brothers. My dad just stayed in his study. I didn't have a fucking clue what was happening, but one of the other people were always home and ready to be the person that's like, oh, you're trying that, huh? So I already had just like absolute humiliation and no, like I wasn't going to attempt to fucking practice anything at home. And that was used against me later on as well, because I had a guitar for a very, very long time. I got a guitar for Christmas when I was like maybe like 6 or 7, because I'd been asking for one. I wanted to learn to play guitar, and I was repeatedly told that I couldn't have lessons because I would be able to self-teach. But every time I touched the fucking guitar, mum would be like, oh, don't do that, that sounds like shit, why are you doing that? You know, like that was one of the few things, like, it varied, is what we're saying. Like if it was an instrument, it was very like, oh, that racket, why are you making that racket? If it was me singing, if it was me trying to dance, it was, oh, well, that's not very good, is it? So I just stopped trying. I stopped practicing. I would put my absolute all in during the moment, like during the run up when we're having lessons and classes or whatever, and on the actual performances I would put my absolute fucking all in, but I very obviously hadn't fucking rehearsed enough because I didn't have the option to at home. And that's sort of quite on trend. The rest of them aren't going to be quite as rambly, to be fair with you. I didn't quite need to provide as much context as I did there, but it just felt like there was a lot into that one. But similarly to how she did with that, just random put downs all the fucking time, usually slightly concealed. You know, it was never stuff where I could be like, why would you say that? You said this and it was mean. It was stuff where she'd be like, no, I asked you. Like one of her favourite things to say if I was struggling with something, if I needed help with something, if I wasn't doing something right, she'd go, are you stupid? And there were a fair few times where I'd be like, stop calling me stupid. And she'd be like, I haven't called you stupid. Not once have I ever in your life called you stupid. I'm asking you if you're stupid because you're acting like you are. So are you? You know? And it's like, you're calling me stupid right now. Like, you are literally calling me stupid. And I know you phrased it like it's a little question, but you're calling me stupid. As I mentioned, she had an issue with my weight from quite a young age, so I remember a variety of times that I would have dressed up for like school discos, going to see a friend, going to a sleepover, going to a friend's birthday party, anything like that. And I'd have my little outfit on, I'd be really proud of it, and she'd be like, oh, is that what you're wearing? You sure? You sure you want to wear that? That's definitely what you're going to wear to this. Okay then. And you're this specific part that I know that you're excited about, this belt that you've bought just for this, or this necklace, or like the way you've done your hair and spent hours on, you're definitely sure about that part. All right then. You know? And it's like, no, you haven't told me I'm a fat ugly bitch, but like, I sure as shit feel like you have. And I think it was my first or second anniversary of my horrible fucking ex, but he was taking me to like a French restaurant that it wasn't that fancy, but I'd really hyped it up, and so he was taking me to like their best place in the world. So I'd like gotten fake eyelashes, I'd done a full face of makeup, I had like a push-up bra and one of those like body form shapewear dress things that like were really popular in like 2014. Like I'd done everything I possibly fucking could to try and look good. I was wearing high heels. I'd spent like an entire day to look good, and I'd gone, I don't know why I was at my mum's, to be fair. I think maybe he was going to pick me up from there. Maybe I hadn't quite No, I'd definitely moved out by the time this was happening. I don't know why the fuck I was at my mum's, but I was. And when I was like all dressed up and ready to go, she looked up at me, she went, "Oh, you actually look nice." And it was with like such surprise and complete shock. Like she could not believe her fucking eyes was the tone of this. And like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, you complimented me. Again, it didn't feel good. And that brings me to one that like really fucking bothered me right before I went no contact with her. Because from the age of like 20 to 23, 24-ish, I lost quite a significant amount of weight. I went from being like a size 22 to 24 to being a size like 14 to a size 12. It was the first time in my entire life that I was a smaller size than my mother, and she fucking hated that, let me tell you. So during that time, I had a relationship with my mother. We were going out to charity shops together, we were looking around together, and everything that I was wearing, like I'd gone, like it didn't realistically happen that fast. Like it was quite a healthy weight loss over several years. But like, it took me a very long time to process it and catch up with the fact that I'd lost weight. So by the time I was like, oh, I've lost some weight here, I'd lost the weight, you know, like I was like a size 12 and I was still wearing size 24s with just like belts because they're my clothes, you know. It just like didn't compute to me that I've lost this weight. I still like was like, I'm losing weight, and when I've lost weight, I'll get new clothes. And then all of a sudden, I was in like clothes that were just vastly too big for me, and I was like, what the fuck has gone on here? So my mum was quite often taking me out to charity shops, and sometimes I was this is on the list for later, but like sometimes she would buy me stuff, and like I didn't have money at this point. I was in a financially abusive relationship where like I didn't have an income and he didn't give me money, so I just didn't have money, you know, like that just wasn't a thing for me. That just didn't happen. Sometimes he would send me grocery money so I could go and buy the food that I would then cook for him. If I needed to get like fucking stain remover to be able to wash the shit stains out of his underwear for him, he would send me the money to go and get that. I didn't have money, so quite often my mum would buy me things, and she would sometimes then be like, oh, you'll have to pay me back for that later. And it'd be like, as she scanned her card, she'd be like, you'll have to pay me that back. And I'd be like, yes, I'm gonna have to pay you that back. So, and then other times she would just actually buy it for me. And a lot of the clothes that she bought for me are the ones that I still have. But the thing that came with it, and the thing that like she felt, it always felt like she was waiting for the opportunity. Like she was very outgoing. She really liked talking to people. She would like engage just random strangers in conversation. And she absolutely loved getting me to try things on in the shop and then getting other people's opinion on it. And they would quite like, I've lost a lot of weight, I have a lot of loose skin, and she was trying very hard to make me dress like really like preppy and cute in the way that she thought people should dress. So I'm getting put in like skinny jeans and like tight little tank tops, and people are like, and then that's when she would get to be like, and she's lost like 10 stone, you know, she's lost so much weight, she's lost 10 stone. She used to be like really big, she was really big, yeah, like she's still not all the way there, but like she was really big and she's lost all that weight and now she looks like this. And that's when they'd be like, oh wow, how impressive are you, this looks great. Because it doesn't matter if you look a bit fat, if you're not as fat as you used to be. And my mum just very clearly fucking loved the validation that she got from me losing weight. And I didn't want the attention, I didn't want any, like, I'm not like ashamed that I used to be fat. I definitely had a phase where I was, and I was like, I don't want anyone to ever know that I used to be fat. But like, I'm not there anymore. But it's just the thing of like, I don't like that my body's being validated as the body of someone who used to be fat versus as someone who's currently in existence and just wants to look decent and feel okay in the fucking skin that I have, you know? Like, I'm just trying to feel comfy and somewhat happy. And like she knew that, like we talked about this stuff. She loved being the type that was like, oh yeah, me and my daughter, we're best friends, we talk about everything. And by everything she meant that she would occasionally bring up topics that were extremely uncomfortable for me and that I didn't want to talk about, and she would just push it until I did. And that was one of them. My weight loss was one of them. She loved talking about it. She loved trying to like get tips and tricks and acting like she had really like had some sort of fucking hand in it, when it was the fact that I'd learned that like, oh, if you don't boil broccoli to an absolute mush, it's quite nice to eat. Like I was literally just far enough from moving out that I'd realised I could cook vegetables in a way that didn't make them fucking disgusting, which was something my mum had never mastered. So it was literally, it felt like the world of food had opened up to me for the first time in my entire life, because I realised that like if you roast carrots instead of just boiling them to a mush, carrots are actually quite nice, aren't they? Like, a lot of vegetables, if you just roast them with a little bit of salt and oil, instead of boiling them with nothing and then serving them mush on a plate and going, why don't you like your vegetables? They're actually quite nice. That was like the biggest influence to my weight loss, I think, more so than going vegan at the time. But like, you could tell, like, I have a lot of body language, like, and it quite often does not benefit me. But when people bring, like, I say people, when my mother would bring up my weight loss to just strangers, to her friends, to just random fucking people, everyone could tell that I was uncomfortable and didn't want it to be a thing. My mother could definitely tell. She just didn't care because she enjoyed the validation that it brought her. So she just repeatedly made me feel exceptionally uncomfortable and like told people things about me to get validation for herself. Another reason I really like didn't enjoy going out in public with her was that she would have these like major responses to the slightest inconvenience. You know, like, say we've gone to McDonald's and we've placed our order and it's been 7 minutes. Like, it wouldn't take very long before she would be sat there and she'd be tutting and she'd be huffing and she'd be looking around, and then you'd get the like, oh, well, I thought this was meant to be fast food. They're taking their time, aren't they? God, nothing ever runs properly anymore, and the table's dirty though. Look, no one's cleaned that table. Just the moment there was the slightest inconvenience, everything in the world pissed her off. Everything was the worst thing ever, and she was making it everybody else's problem. There were so many times that we would be like having a nice day out as a family, and that's the thing, is like, we didn't go out that often, so it was very much like, by the time I was living like outside of the family home, I would go and see her because I didn't want to go out in public with her, because these were the repeated situations that we had while I was growing up. So many times we would go out as a family and we'd be like getting ice cream, getting cake, getting some sort of like nice fun treat for the family, and we'd probably have already had some sort of thing where they'd be like, should Dana really be having this though? You're lucky to be getting this, kids. Like, there's probably already been some sort of guilty weird thing going on before we get this treat, and then the ice cream doesn't look as big as it did in the picture. It doesn't have the same colour sauce as it did in the picture. It was always something to do with the item versus the picture. And my mum's the person that is strolling up to the desk and be like, do you think that looks like the picture? I'm not paying for this. It was trade and standards, you know, one of those people. Like, I guess a Karen, but like, she'd never ask to speak to the manager. She'd just make the staff member cry. Or like, I'd be buying a shirt in a charity shop and there'd be a slight like little rip somewhere near the seam, you know, like a tiny hole, the slightest little sign of wear, and my mum storming up to the desk of a charity shop to be like, this item's damaged, can we get money off this? Can you do this for cheaper? Oh, what do you mean you're not going to do a reduction? Oh, it's a charity shop where you're selling things that aren't worth selling. Like, anywhere, any minor inconvenience, it's the end of the world, and she's absolutely popping off and making it everybody else's fucking problem. I cannot tell you how many times growing up, and especially as a teenager, I was that kid that you would see where someone's mum is like absolutely popping off and then she's storming off and the kid is like, I'm so sorry, and then fucking running off after her to deal with the situation. It happened all the time and I fucking hated it. It was so embarrassing, and I really struggled to fucking understand the mindset behind it, you know, like having an inconvenience happen and feeling like it's the end of the world and like everything else is now the most annoying thing ever. I get that entirely. I don't for a moment understand having this outburst and making it other people's problem and not having any empathy for the fact that they can't change it or solve it or like whatever, you know? I do also think that watching this back now, that is why I never fucking complain. Like, part of it is that because that's my example, that's all I ever saw, I don't know how to like resolve an issue professionally. Like, the only way that I've seen things be resolved, whether it's like, oh, I ordered this drink and you've given me the wrong one, this is actually not as good as I expected it to be, whatever the issue is, I don't know how I'm supposed to solve it beyond like verbally assaulting someone until they're really upset and just do what I've told them to. And I don't want to be like that. I don't particularly know how to be like that either, but it's the only example that I've seen, so I don't know what I'm supposed to try to be like, you know? So if anything goes wrong, if my order is disgusting, the amount of times I've been given like straight up the wrong order, and I've just sat there and dealt with it because I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. You know, like even with my recent house stuff, when they're like constantly moving it back and not getting it ready, it is ready now. But even with that stuff, I'm just like, I guess you just get to not do your job properly and walk all over me because I don't know what to do or say to not, like, I don't want to be a bitch, but also, like,
do your job properly, but I don't know what to do. And I do think it's because my mum used to just scream at random fucking people.
It might look slightly different because my memory ran out. I also don't know if it ran out mid-sentence, but I'd given you that one. You get what I was saying there. So next up was just the amount of manipulation. And I think it especially bothered me because I don't really need to be manipulated. Like, if you just ask me to do something, chances are I'm gonna do it. Like, if it's not like a major inconvenience to me, I'm happy to just do most things to be helpful. And I feel like that should be fairly obvious. But then even saying that now, I'm like, is that just because of like the people-pleasing tendencies that were instilled in me from my mother manipulating me so much? So like I mentioned before, sometimes she would pay for things for me, and other times she would pay for things for me and then be like, you'll have to pay me that back, which did not seem like the deal at the time, you know? Like, it seemed like she was getting it for me. It seemed like that was what was happening here. She like took the item I wanted out of my hand and was like, well, I'll get it then. Like, it seemed like she was getting it for me and not just going to make me pay her back later. Otherwise I probably would have been like, no, don't, it's okay, I don't need it. But most times that she bought me something, I had an absolute pit in my stomach for the next 2 days, and it didn't usually take longer than 2 days. It was usually like, she would buy me something and I'd see her the next day and we'd have a cup and we'd do our normal little routine and we'd have a chat and I'd go home and it'd be fine, and I'd go up the next day and halfway through our normal little routine chat she'd be like, and I need to get this thing done, or I want to do this, or I like the idea of this, or I need to go and visit this person that I don't like very much. And I knew it was coming. She'd be like, so it'd be easier if you'll have time, whatever it was. It was always just some random bollocks. And it like, that's like, it's stuff that I would have just said yes to, you know? But instead it had to be this whole like, she's buying me something, so that means that this is coming. So she's going to ask me for something at some point. And it could be fucking anything. It could be absolutely fucking anything. I put this as 2 points, and I'm going to condense them now that I'm actually doing it, because she also did this a lot in regards to me helping other people. Like, probably more, especially towards the end of my relationship with her, way more often than it was to manipulate anything for her own gain. It would be so I would do something for my brother, because I didn't fucking like the man. I didn't like him. He was horrible to me when I was a kid. He tried really hard to manipulate me as a teenager and adult, and I was just, I'm sorry, I was smarter than him. He's just quite fucking stupid and not very fucking nice. I didn't like the man. I didn't want to spend time around him. I didn't want to have to fucking drive 6 hours down south to help him pick up an engine, to drive back with him and carry a fucking car engine through the house with him. I didn't want to do it. And yeah, I'm sorry. It probably, I should I have felt like I needed to do that because my mother was the one asking, and 2 days before she'd bought me groceries because my boyfriend wouldn't send me money to be able to buy food. Like, I don't feel like that's fair. I do feel like that's quite abusive. And like I say, a lot of it, like that, obviously that's quite an extreme example, but a lot of it was stuff that I would have just done anyway. It was like going and picking up her meds from the fucking pharmacy or going and doing a shop for her. Like, it was stuff where I'd just be like, yeah. Like, it's not really an inconvenience. The pharmacy's like a 10-minute walk. Like, I'll stick some music on, I'll be back in 20. Like, the vast majority of stuff was stuff that I would have just done, and then the rest of it was stuff that she knew that I fucking wouldn't. And if she didn't do the tactic of having bought me something, that was when like my entire family just played on the fact that I fucking care, and that's always pissed me off. It's always been really shit. I ended up being the only person that went and regularly saw and looked after my dad from the ages of 16 until I was 18 when he died. He had moved out when I was 16. Everything fell to shit when I was 16. I fucked off with my boyfriend. I did initially live with my dad for a little while, but I couldn't be the sole carer of a man who had spent the last 30, 20 years having a woman just look after him. My mum just did everything for him. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what do you mean you left raw chicken out on the side for 3 days and you don't understand why there's maggots here? Like, I'm 16 years old, I can't fucking do this. So I moved out with my boyfriend thinking that would be better, and then just became his version of what my mum had been to my dad. That entire situation came around purely because no one else was doing anything, you know? Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I was like a top-notch fucking carer to my dad, because I wasn't. I was fucking 16 and had just moved out, and I didn't have a fucking clue what I was doing. I desperately needed some sort of support. I'd just dropped out of college because I realised I couldn't fucking manage anything. Like, I was in such a vulnerable place, and then also had to look after my dad. I wasn't doing it all that well. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I was the only one that was fucking doing it. And that story changed after he died, obviously, But I was the one that was there. I spoke to my dad. I was in his house like regularly. I knew what he was up to. I spoke to him through the day. Like, it was me that was there. I knew full well that they weren't coming. Like, both of my brothers had fallen out with my dad when he moved out and stopped talking to him completely. They did not speak to him from when he moved out until he died. I know that with like full fucking knowledge, because about 3 weeks before he died, I'd gone round while I was pissed because he'd called me and he was having like a whole issue, and I was like, Dad, I'm drunk, I've been out drinking, like, I'm fucked right now. And he was like, well, so am I. So I had to go and just like, it was horrible, but I went and sorted him, and we'd had this whole like drunk heart to heart where he was like really fucking devastated that my brothers just would not speak to him. And I'm so glad that we had that, because it was very deep and very personal, so I'm not going to go further into it. But I know full well that no one else went and fucking saw him, and that story changed after he had died. And the other thing that changed after he had died was that we talked about him. We just hadn't talked about him whatsoever from when he moved out up until he died. And all of a sudden it was, oh, well, we knew you'd look after him, Dan. Like, we knew you'd do it. And they were still insisting that they'd been there, but also saying we knew you'd do it. And then when my nan started to like really deteriorate on my mum's side, I started having to step in there all the time. And all of a sudden my mum's showing up outside my house, banging on my door saying, come on, we're gonna go see your nan. Completely regardless of whatever plans I had for the day. I didn't know that were fucking happening. And it was a full day event going to see my nan, because she was old and like kind of decrepit and kind of falling apart, and had too many fucking cats, and had fucking guinea pigs, and had a fucking rabbit at one point because people just kept letting her buy pets. So when I went over, my mum would be the one entertaining her because she was fucking awful to talk to, so at least I didn't have to deal with that. I'd clean all the cat litter trays, I'd clean all the cat food bowls, I'd clear out the guinea pigs, I'd clear out the fucking rabbit. We would then have to take her shopping. I'd be pushing her wheelchair around the shop. She never bothered to get one that was comfortable for people to push, so I'd be having to like really lean down. It really made my fucking back hurt. At some point she'd be like, oh, please don't hit me again. I hate it when you lock me under the stairs, and just start saying all this bollocks as though I was like physically horribly abusing this old woman, while people are looking at me like, is this for real? Is she playing a prank? What the fuck's going on here? And it's one of those things where I don't want to pretend my mum wasn't doing anything, because she was there. She was like talking to my nan and helping, but also she was mostly driving the fucking car. You know, she was driving the car and she was talking to her own mother. And actually, like, we were doing the exact same amount for her. And on top of that, it was then constant guilt of my mum being like, oh, thank God for you, Dan. I don't know what I'd do without you. You help us so much. If it weren't for you, I really don't know what I'd do. And I got that from so many of my family members over and over and over and over and over and over. And it fucking sucked.
But also, I'd be getting told how I'm doing so much and I'm so invaluable and I'm so helpful, and they just don't know what they'd do without me. And then as soon as we had an argument, it'd be like, well, what do you even do all day? You're so lazy, you don't have a job, what do you even do? Why wouldn't you help us? Like, what else do you have to do with your life other than be our servant? Like, what's the point of you if you're not helping others? And it's like, I thought my help was so useful and invaluable and you really needed it. And all of a sudden, it's treated as though you're giving me a kindness by giving me something to do with my day, as though I wouldn't possibly have anything else to do. I don't have any of my own plans. I'm not living my own life in any way. You're being kind by manipulating me into doing things that I don't want to do so that I have something to do with my day.
Like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been like 15, 16, 17 years old wiping my fucking grandmother's ass and helping her to bath and helping her to shower and helping my dad to do the fucking same and having to wipe my dad's shit off the floor when he's having like horrific fucking accidents. Like, I should not have been having to care for those people as a teenager when my mother was right there. But I was very much made to feel as though my mother was doing the absolute most that she possibly could, and I needed to pick up the slack because no one else would. And obviously that's like, it's tail old as fucking time into the women of the family having to be the ones that do the shit. And I'll also give that, like, I don't honestly know what went on between my parents for a lot of, like, their whole, my dad moving out and all that stuff. My mum did still come and see my dad. They still seemed to, like each other and have a relationship of some degree. I don't know what went on there. Probably, I mean, I never will now. They're both dead. But regardless of what it was, my mother very much made me feel like it was my duty and, like, I had to, and, like, well, also validating me a lot for being the one to do it. So it was just this constant, like, up and down of feeling so guilty for not doing enough, and then being told how great I am for doing it in the first place, but then I'm still not doing enough, you need to do better, but it's so great that you do it in the first place. And it was so up and down, and it was just horrible. And it's stuff that I was never able to bring up to her as well. Like, a lot of the things that I talk about in videos, I did try and bring up to her, and she was just, like, entirely She didn't give a fuck, essentially. She just like, no, we didn't. You're remembering it wrong. You're oversensitive. Stop it. But the stuff that came, like, the stuff where it was like, well, it was expected of me. You're supposed to look after your family. You know, like, it wasn't something I ever felt like I could bring up because it was just such a obvious expectation that should be okay. And, like, I just was not prepared to be a full-time carer to an elderly disabled man when I was 16. You know? Someone should have been helping me there with that.
This is also one of those things where I don't want to act like having kids when you're older is like an abusive thing to do, because for a lot of people it really isn't, and like everything's about nuance and context. But for me personally, it fucking sucked growing up constantly having people ask like, oh, is this your granddad? And having to be like, no, it's my dad. And especially when you'd then gotten like older, as I got older, as you do, like my parents always knew from my dad's health, from my dad's age, all of that, they always knew that he was going to be getting unwell as I reached adulthood. Like, it was always just a known fact in my family that at some point I would be having to care for my dad while being fairly young. And it would, with him getting older, it also, I found it so much more difficult going out and about and having people look at me being a 17-year-old, 16-year-old, like sometimes still in my school uniform with my dad on his mobility scooter because like he couldn't physically walk, like he could get around the house. I don't think he would have been able to like physically go and walk up a street, you know, like he couldn't do it. He was very severely physically disabled. So people are seeing that, seeing me being a child and be like, oh, are you helping look after your granddad? And it's like, no, I'm looking after my dad. I'm not helping anyone. No one's helping me. I'm just looking after my disabled elderly father and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And we're just going with it. It's just the way things are.
One of the things that did get brought up repeatedly from when I was extremely young was how much my mum favoured my brother. My middle brother could do absolutely nothing wrong. I've made an entire video that I will link here if I remember to about why my mum didn't like me. I give a lot of context in that I don't feel like I really want to ramble and go into here. But long story short, my oldest brother was autistic and quite a difficult child to deal with from what we've been told. And then my middle brother came along and he was like all like chubby and perfect and cute and not autistic. So my mum like really fucking latched onto him and really loved him. And then I came along and my mum hates girls. So like she was like, fuck this kid. So throughout growing up, it was incredibly fucking obvious, you know, like her tone of voice changed so drastically while talking to him. She could be so pissed off with me, not through anything I'd done, just in general, like just for me existing. Like, average night in my house, I've walked into the kitchen and gone, hey mum, what's for dinner? And she's turned to me and gone, shit with sugar on, it'll be ready when it's ready. And I've gone, okay. And sat down at the dinner table. My middle brother's walked in after me and gone, hey mum, what's for dinner? And she's gone, oh, green beans with mash and chicken. You know, like it was stuff like that all the fucking time. There was a massive discrepancy in the punishments that we got. There was a point when I was like really little where it turned out that he'd been going out with my mum's bank card late at night to withdraw money from her bank to like spend and do whatever the fuck he fancied with. And she didn't know what was happening for fucking ages, obviously. And when she did find out, he'd stolen like £300 to £500 from her. My dad wanted to call the police on him and have like, he stole our money. He stole money from the joint account. We call the police. That's what happens when a like 16-year-old person steals money from someone's bank sneakily late at night, knowing full well what they're doing. Like, you know, it's not like a tenner out of the purse. Like, he's going and withdrawing the amount that he wants for that night. Like, it's insane. He got grounded for 3 months. There was a point when he would have been underage. He was definitely still underage. Like, as in not 18, we're in the UK. He'd drunk so much vodka, I think, straight, that he'd passed out outside the co-op and we had to go meet up with him in a hospital. He didn't get into any sort of trouble for that. That was just, oh, isn't he silly? Boys being boys. When I was a teenager, I'd quite often roll home, like, tipsy, you know? Like, I was quite a sensible drinker as a teenager, to be honest with you. I didn't throw up from drinking until I was, like, 20. Like, I was reasonably sensible, but I was definitely pissed, you know? And I would roll up home. I had 2 options. There were the days that my mum was either already really annoyed but not at me, or the times that she'd just fucking given up on parenting, did not give a shit and just like didn't look at me. Like, she did not notice me. I could walk up and stand in front of her and she would have probably just fucking looked through me. And on those days, nothing had happened. It were fine. I'd just get home drunk. She could definitely smell it on me. She could definitely tell that her like 14, 15, 16-year-old daughter was absolutely pissed off her fucking face. And she just let me go to the bathroom, go upstairs, get into bed. Like, just did not address it, did not look at me. It was fine. Other nights I would come home and she'd be really fucking angry. Like, she was already in a fucking mood. It was probably nothing to do with me. And if I'd just stayed in my room and not come out and seen her, I'd have been fine. But I'd been out. I had to walk through the house to go back to my bedroom, and she would see me, and it felt like fucking Terminator locking in, and she'd be like, "You've been drinking, haven't you?" And I'd be like, "Oh, fuck's sake, here we go." No, Mum. Here, somebody tried to phone me and it made my screen go weird and the video stopped, but I don't answer phone calls anyway, so it don't fucking matter to me. I would get told that I was grounded. I would be like, "How long for?" And she'd be like, "Until I fucking say you're not." Many times, a couple of weeks later, I'd be like, "So am I maybe not grounded anymore? Can I stop being grounded now?" "Well, now you're mithering me. You're grounded for longer now. You're grounded until I say and don't bring it up again." But if I didn't bring it up again, she'd fucking forget. But the moment that I fucking stepped out the door, my dad or somebody else would fucking remember me like, "Isn't Dana grounded? Why is Dana going out?" And then I've broken when I was supposed to be grounded, and I've tried to go outside when I know the rules, so I'm grounded for longer. Like, I had times that, like, for like probably like near on a year at a time, I like all I was allowed to do was go to school or go out with my parents because I was grounded for fucking anything, you know? And my brother would do way fucking worse and not like see barely any punishment or just straight up no punishment. And that just continued constantly as I got older. Like, there was a point, maybe 6 months before I went no contact with her, there was a point when I owed her, I want to say 180 quid. I owed her some fucking money, and I'd owed it to her for a little while, to be fair. But I finally, like, I got something or another. Like, bear in mind, I was also in a financially abusive relationship, so quite often when I got money, it went immediately onto his credit card. He needed something, I was supposed to pay him back for something. Like, the moment I got money, it was fucking gone. It still is half the time, but at least it's my own fault now. But I paid her back, and she made such a fucking massive ordeal out of it. She made such a huge thing. She was like, "Oh my god, Dana's actually paid me back." And like, I sure have, mother. That's right. Because for my entire life, I'd been seen as this like untrustworthy person to never lend anything to, because there's no chance you're getting it back. And I don't know where the fuck it came from, because it had always been a thing. I literally don't remember ever being lent money, ever being allowed to borrow anything, because I don't give things back. I'm untrustworthy. So I never got lent shit. So at that time, when I paid my mother back and she made this massive thing of like, "Oh my god, this is such a shock that you're actually a trustworthy person that paid me back the money that you owed me." At this point, over the last like 5 years or so before that, my brother had just been constantly borrowing money off her for car parts for the car that he was definitely getting sorted, guys. So at that point, he owed her like over £2,000 that he had owed her for years. I'd owed it to her for like a year tops, you know, which is still long enough, I'll give, but like, I paid it back. I'd owed it for a while, and I paid it back when I had it. My brother just spent his money. Like, they lived together. She would see him getting all these fucking parcels and that, and then like after getting all these parcels, he'd be like, "Oh, I still need this, can you lend me 50 quid? And she'd be like, "Yeah, sure, son. Not a worry. Not a worry in the world, my perfect little boy. Here's your money." And he just owed her thousands, and it was fine, because he's gonna pay her back eventually. And one thing that I didn't mention in the video about my brother, like why my mum preferred my brother, is that I think that there's some level of it also so my oldest brother came out as gay when I was like 8 or something, so like, you know, like fairly young. He was like, "I'm gay," and we were like, "We know." And then I came out when I was like 14, and it was fucking horrible actually. We were in the car before school because I'd kept trying to find the moment, and like there was just never a fucking moment to speak to her. So there was this one day that she'd actually driven me to school instead of making me walk, and I was like, "I'm going to this club tonight. Do you know what it is?" And she was like, it's the gay club, isn't it, in like the local like youth centre, it's for the gay kids." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going because I'm gay." And she was just like, "Oh right, need to go into school, don't you?" Did not give a fuck. Like, seemed kind of uncomfortable, but also just did not care. Was just like, "Oh, okay, like, I don't know why you've told me this, you need to go to school." And he's like, "I'm your child, like, I've told you this because I'm related to you and you're my mother. Like, I've told you a major piece of information about myself that I'm figuring out right now, and you've told me, alright, you need to go to school." And I do think some level of like the favouritism for my middle brother was that it was only after me and my brother had been out for like several years and we'd had partners to the house, and like being gay had become extremely fucking normalised for my family, because like those of us there's a bunch of fucking gays in my family, and we were making it be normalised because it should be. And it was after all of that my middle brother was like, "I think I might be bisexual actually." And I don't want to say he isn't. I don't want to question anyone's sexuality. He did only have girlfriends. The odd time that somebody stuck around for him, which wasn't often, because he was genuinely fucking horrible. And I also don't want to be like, oh, he came out when it was easy, because that, again, doesn't feel very fucking fair. But I do think that, like, for my mother, by that point, being gay had been normalised to such a point that she was like, oh, well, at least he's bisexual. Like, at least there's a chance of straightness with this one. So, like, it just... He didn't have any of, like, the emotional impact of coming out to our parents that me and my oldest brother had, you know? Like, I don't give my oldest brother, like, props for much, but, like, I can't imagine the absolute fear that he had coming out to my family, not knowing... Like, we didn't talk about gay people because we didn't have any in the family, obviously, and all of a sudden we, you know, like, all we had was the weird gay cousin that does drag, and that's kind of fun and okay because he does drag, so that makes it, like, quirky and cool. I can't imagine, like, the absolute fucking fear that he went through telling my parents that he was gay. Like, major fucking props for that, and it definitely made it feel safer for me to come out. Still didn't get the actual, like, fucking reaction I wanted, but, like, I knew I wasn't getting kicked out, you know? I knew I might get some unsavoury comments, because, like, I know when my brother came out, someone asked if he could just go and get a pill for that. Like, I knew it might not be nice, but I knew I was safe, you know? Like, but it was still just extremely disappointing, and that was very much... Like, I don't really remember telling my mum other big things about myself because it just felt pointless, because I'm not going to get any sort of validation or the reaction that I want. Like, there's just no point in telling her the big things, you know? Like, there were lots of things that I would save up to tell my mum about because I knew those were the things that would get some sort of a reaction. They would actually prompt a conversation with her. She would say something back, because a lot of the things that are actually, like, a part of me and things that I wanted to talk about were things where she'd just be like, okay, all right, whatever. My mum loved saying whatever, actually. Like, for a full-grown woman, she said whatever, like, a lot.
I'm pretty sure it was on my, like, list of things for this video that I didn't get around to. If I did, you're gonna hear this again later on, I'm sorry. But saying about how she would always go, whatever then, prompted me to think about how many times also I would ask her for things. Like, I would ask for money to go to the shop with friends. I would ask for her to drive me somewhere. I would just ask for something from her as a child, as a teenager. And she'd be like, oh, I don't know about that. You know, like, it wouldn't be a no. It would be like an uncertain answer. So I'd be like, oh, well, I can do this, or we can do this. Or, like, I would offer some sort of compromise to try and make it more likely. And she would just get incredibly fucking annoyed at me for mithering her, for continuing it on, for, there's definitely more wording that she used that was basically just like, shut the fuck up and stop asking me. But, like, if she'd just said no, I wouldn't have asked again. I was very aware in our household that once you've been told no, you shut up, you don't carry it on. But there would be times that there wasn't this no, so I would carry it on. And very quickly she would get extremely annoyed at me. And I can't tell you how many times I would be asking for, like, can I have £1 to go and get a Galaxy? I love to the bars of Galaxy. I like to go in and get one with my 3 friends, and we'd all split it. And, like, it was a whole time for a kid in, like, 2008. So I would literally be asking for £8, and she'd give some, like, uncertain answer. So I'd be like, but my friends are going to the shop and I want to also get sweets with them. And she'd be like, oh, so because your friends are going to the shop, you think you want to go to the shop? And I'd be like, well, yeah, like, yeah, that's what's happening here. And after, like, a little bit of back and forth with that, she would literally just, like, throw her fucking purse at me. She had these, like, fuck off real leather purses that were, like, really heavy and filled with absolute shit, and she'd just lob it at me and be like, well, do whatever the fuck you want then. And, like, similarly, like, if I'd asked her to drive me somewhere and she'd given me the uncertain answer and we'd had some back and forth, all of a sudden she's, like, throwing her coat on and grabbing the keys in the most, like, angry, passive-aggressive way you can possibly fucking do it, and be like, well, get in the car then, I guess it's most important that you go to this place. And I'd be like, great, awesome, we get to do the thing I wanted, and it's completely spoiled. I don't even want to fucking do it anymore, but I have no choice of saying, like, I don't even want to fucking do it anymore because what you wanted to do, and I'm fucking doing it for you now, aren't I? Like, it was just so stressful and uncomfortable and horrible.
But I got into some of all that because my mum was the type of homophobic that I think a lot of us are very used to middle-aged people in the UK being. You know, like, they're not going to be horrible about you, but they are going to say, we just don't want it shoved down our throats. Which meant that the Christmas that I had a girlfriend, and, like, I'd taken my girlfriend over to my mum's house, I'd introduced her as my girlfriend, I'd had the discussions with my mum of, like, I'm with a woman now and I love her and I'm really happy with her and I want you to meet her because I love my girlfriend. Like, she was very fucking aware that this woman was not my gal pal. She wasn't a friend that I've made, you know, like she was very fucking aware, this is my partner, this is the person I'm in a relationship with, and like, I couldn't have made it clearer, you know? And then we get to Christmas and I'm opening my Christmas presents for my mum and she's like, oh, I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for you to open this one. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, I have to put on a whole reaction now. I fucking hate opening presents in front of my mother because she's going to be like, oh, you're going to scream over this one. So now I actually have to like be really excited, even though like I am excited, but I'm autistic. I swear to you, one day I'm going to figure out what all of these like storage memory issue things are. But we're getting back into it. I don't entirely know where it cut off. But yeah, so it was one of the most genuinely just very disappointing moments from my mother that definitely massively influenced me going no contact with her. Because after all of these discussions we'd had about how this is my girlfriend, this is my partner, I'm gay and I love this woman, please don't act like we're just friends. She bought me best friend's bangles for Christmas. They were like, I still have them somewhere because I just, they feel like an embodiment of the disappointment that I feel in my mother figure as like a whole, you know? Like, I didn't expect her to like be super accepting and like really like love that I had a girlfriend, or like be really like, you know, I wasn't expecting her to be like nice about it. I was expecting her to do what she did with every other issue anyone in our family ever fucking had and just ignore it, you know? Like, I don't recall her ever doing anything like that with my brother. We called his boyfriends his boyfriends. When he was engaged, we called his fiance his fiance. We, you know, there was no weirdness. There was no like subtle little digs of like, oh, but it's not a real relationship since like you're both the same, you know? Like, there was none of that for him, but there was for me. And it was just incredibly disappointing. And I think it so massively showed that like, it showed my mother's lack of empathy. Like, I was really fucking happy and I'd made it real clear to her and she could see that. And she just had to do this one little thing to like ruin it a little bit for me just because she could. And up to that point, I'd been making a lot of excuses for her, like to myself and to others, because she was incredibly fucking racist, transphobic, just like generally shitty about any like minority group of people you can think of. She voted Brexit, mate, like bit of just a general dirtbag, like not a very good fucking person, you know? And I'd tried really hard to make all sorts of like excuses for her bigotry and being like, oh, but it's the generation, it's this and it's that. And like, if you can't even respect your daughter's relationship, like nothing there's ever going to change. You're never going to be nice about people, you're never going to be understanding of people, you're never going to be empathetic or sympathetic or just like, I lost so much respect for my mother in just that moment, you know? Just opening that present and seeing these fucking shitty little silver bangles that say best friends forever. Moving on though, one of the parts that I again found like harder and harder the older that I got was that if she had some sort of issue, if she had something going on, if she didn't feel very well, if she was anxious, if she was too hot, anything like that, you know, like at various points when she experienced depression and mental health issues, anything she had going on, it needed to be mended, it needed to be fixed. She deserved to be looked after, she deserved to be cared for. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But the older I got, the more often she expected it from me. And the more I was faced with comparisons and being like, why the fuck should I do this for you? No. And a lot of it I just did for a very fucking long time because I felt bad not to, because I do think it's the way that people should behave. I do think we should care about and look after each other. And it doesn't feel good for me to be like, well, you don't look after me. You know, like, it doesn't feel good. But there was just so many moments, like, I know I've shared this one in videos before, but there was a moment when I'd done like a whole big day out to like pamper my mum and show her how special she was and how much I loved her and all of that stuff. And we'd gone into this big shopping market, like stall place, and she got really overwhelmed. She got really fucking anxious. She started having like a panic attack, an autistic shutdown. I don't know. My mum didn't like get diagnosed with stuff. I don't know what the fuck she had going on, but she weren't doing well. Her breathing got really fast. She was shaking. She was looking around in that way where I was just like, she don't know what's going on. She's disoriented. She's fucked. Like, this is a bad moment for her. So I got her into the corner and like made sure I was like up in her space in the way that she clearly needed, because it meant she could focus on my face. And I was like, you're having a moment and it's gonna be all right. It's really busy in here. It's really crowded. It's really loud. It's really bright. I understand, I get it, I get what's going on here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put my arm around you, you can just keep hold of me, and I'm going to guide us through the crowd and get us to all these people, and I'm going to get us outside, and you're going to feel better once we're outside because there's not so many people and you'll get a bit of air. You good? That good? And she nodded, so I did that and like pushed her through the crowd, like had her like slightly behind me, so I was the one pushing people and they were looking at me like, what the fuck, bitch? And then seeing her almost in tears and being like, oh, fair dues, I'll shift. Got her outside, sat her down, rolled her a cigarette, went back inside to get her a drink, came back outside, gave her the drink, made sure she'd had a sippy sip, got her, like, looked after her in the way I think people deserve to be looked after when they're having a panic and they're overwhelmed in public and they need someone to look after them. Fair, honest, like, just, that's what should be done. I did that for the woman that used to literally just walk me to school while I was sobbing the entire time, would be like dragging me by my hand as a child, would just put me in the playground and walk away again. Like when I was so overwhelmed and so anxious and having like all these fucking issues, didn't give a fuck. Like I remember her telling me at one point that the only reason she didn't throw herself under a bus when my dad died was because she had my brother. And I was just sat there like, I've been here supporting you this entire time. Like, while also grieving the death of my dad, I've also been coming over to see you and making sure that you're eating and just doing everything that I possibly can to help and doing everything that I can to support you. And you would have killed yourself after my dad had died if my brother hadn't been there. Awesome. I'll just provide you with all of this emotional support. I'll know all of the horrible thoughts that you have, all the times that you've considered suicide and whatever else, every fucking negative thing that happens in your little brain, you can just put it all onto me and I'll take it all. Never did that for me. I had school counsellors ringing up being like, oh, Dana's self-harming, Dana has signs of an eating disorder, Dana has signs of autism. Nothing was done. There wasn't even a fucking conversation. I only knew that she'd been told because the counsellors fucking told me, like my parents had been told everything that I've said. Nothing got done. No one helped me. Like, I'm sorry, like, I don't agree with the like no one helped me mentality when it comes to like the wider spectrum of the world, you know? Like, just because no one helped me, I think other people should be helped. I don't want other people to feel the way that I did. So for a very long time, I continued going out of my way to try and help my mum. And it is increasingly just gets to the point of like, you're supposed to be the person that was looking after me. You know, it's not like I was putting this onto some stranger and being like, God, I'm doing all this for you. This stranger that I've never met, you'll never guess what happened. But when it comes to the person that should have been helping me when I was struggling massively as a child and a teenager, like, where was she? She was right in front of me, making me feel worse about things. Like, why should I continue putting like exhaustive, like so much fucking emotional energy into this person that has not done the same for me and has not looked after me in the same way, you know? I'm backtracking a little bit, but only to where I said about knowing everything that goes on in her little brain, because that was a big thing that I'm only like recently starting to really be like, that was inappropriate and that shouldn't have been a thing, because I knew. But we had the whole thing of my mother being like, we're best friends, I know everything about my daughter and she knows everything about me. And it's like, yeah, because my school counsellors are telling you things about me. It's not because I've told you, it's not because I wanted you to know. But I did know a vast amount about my mother, about fun, quirky places she'd had sex with past partners when she was younger, what the past partners were like, what my dad was like as a partner, like all sorts of, like what her abusive relationships had been like she just told me things like you would with a friend over a glass of wine, you know? And it's like, okay, but I'm a 10-year-old and you're telling me this over pizza. Like, we would have these mummy-daughter type of nights where we'd watch like half a film and then she'd start just talking over it to tell me things about like her life and her past and things that she'd been through and things that like happened within the family. I remember these mostly happening before I turned 14, and like we're talking like she would be telling me about like serious abuse happening between different family members and when she was younger and things like very traumatic, very like just difficult to talk about, difficult to hear about, things that I should not have been hearing about from my mother as a child, you know? And that very much continued, but by the time I was like 17, she told me all of like the other stuff that she could. So that was when it became her like emotional and mental well-being at the time, and being like, I feel suicidal, and being like, yeah, me too, have done since I was 14. Like, you didn't teach me anyway to cope with it. I don't know what the fuck you think you're gonna get from me now. Like, you know, like if I'd known how to help her, I would have. And I did try. Like, I was there and I was listening to her and trying to say the right thing, but also like
I've not been provided with any sort of support, any sort of healthy coping mechanisms. Like, I do not have a fucking clue. You've been being told that I have suicidal ideation from the age of like fucking 12, and you didn't do anything, so I don't know how you're supposed to deal with it. I'm just taking it one day at a fucking time, and have been for over a decade, to try and keep myself alive while my parents do nothing. So thanks, Mum.
Like, I've spoken before about how I ended up having multiple times that I like guided my mother through panic attacks or shutdowns, or like she was experiencing some sort of like fucking mental health crisis brought on by being extremely overwhelmed in like bright, crowded places. And I don't know what the fuck was going on with her, but I knew the look of like absolute panic and terror of being in this like space where you suddenly don't know what the fuck to do and you're just filled with panic. I knew that look. So I would make sure that she was comforted and get her out of there and look after her in the way that is just obvious to me that that's what you do when someone is in that situation. And somehow, for my mother, it was never obvious to do that to me. It was never obvious to be anything but cruel and annoyed and tell me that I'm oversensitive, you know? Like, when I was 16, we'd not long moved to Liverpool, and I was starting at college soon, so she took me to Primark to buy a new coat, and she was just fucking annoyed at me. She was so annoyed at me for needing a coat. And I was like, I'm 16 years old and it's winter and I'm freezing. Like, you keep telling me put your coat on, and I do, and it's a thin little like jacket, and then you're like, well, why haven't you got a coat on? I'm like, tell me, mother, why haven't I got a coat? So she'd like had to take me to buy a winter coat, and she was already fucking pissed off about it. And so it was not a fun shopping trip, and I'm stood on the bottom level, like basement level of Primark in Liverpool, just sort of like looking around because I'm 16 years old, but it apparently matters much more that my mother likes the coat that I get there, it does that I like it. So she's looking at coats and I'm just sort of like wondering, and all of a sudden there's this like flash of something falling, and I've just witnessed someone fall from the top of Primark and land like 10 feet away from me. It was horrible. Talking about it now, like thinking about it just makes me feel horrendously fucking weird. Like Googling over the next few days to see if the person had survived or not, and finding out that they hadn't, and being like, okay, so I saw someone die then. That's not, like, I hated it. And the moment that I saw it, it put me into like an absolute state, because I had suicidal ideation from the age of like fucking 10, like from a very young age. I was very like, well, if it really gets too much, I can clock out. Like, this isn't permanent, you know? So like, seeing someone, as far as I knew, as far as I'm aware, intentionally plummet themselves was deeply fucking traumatic and unpleasant and horrible. And obviously I know it was worse for them and their families, don't get me wrong, someone died. It was still fucked up to see as a 16-year-old. And my mum's reaction to that was to tell the staff member, you need to go and deal with that, which fair dues, like, it did need to be some staff member that dealt with that. So they evacuated the store. Like, it took them a fucking moment to process what had happened, and then everyone was on it real fucking fast. And while they're evacuating the store, my mum is shouting at a cashier, saying, no, it's taken us too long, we've finally chosen this coat. The coat that she was looking at when I saw someone fall to their death. So when she was like, do you want this one? I was just like, okay. Like, fucking what? Yeah, okay, whatever. Like, I had nothing to give. So when she asked, I was just like, yeah. So she's now shouting at a cashier in a shop where somebody is on the floor dying, having fallen all the way fucking down from the top. And she's shouting at the cashier saying like, no, you need to check us out because we finally chose this coat and I'm not leaving until you check us out. So then she bought me the fucking coat, which I hated wearing because it just made me think of that all the fucking time. I eventually gave it to my boyfriend who was like, you can have the suicide coat. I was shaking. I was having like an absolute internal time because I'd just seen someone die. My mum took me to Subway, got me a black coffee and put like 4 sugars in it, told me to drink it, sat there in silence watching me drink it, and then was like, we're going home now, and just acted like it hadn't happened. There was no addressing of it. That was that. It was over. And I spent the rest of the night like consistently shaking and being like crying and just being very fucking shaken by the experience. And it's one of those, I've always felt silly about it. Like, that's one of the things I'm realising now as I speak about it, is I've always felt really silly for having a reaction to seeing someone essentially die in front of me. And like, no, it was a fucked up thing to see, especially at the age of 16 with my own like inner fucking turmoil going on. It was an extremely fucked up thing to witness. And obviously it was also fucked up for my mother, but she didn't look after me. She didn't Like, I don't remember her hugging me after that. You know, like, thank you for buying me a black coffee at fucking 7 p.m. at night. Like, I get that she didn't do nothing, but also she's my mother, you know? Like, buying someone a coffee and putting some sugar in it for the shock is what I would do for a stranger that I knew witnessed something, not what I would do for my fucking daughter. Give me a hug, comfort me, talk to me about it. Like, care for me in some way. But she didn't. She never fucking did. And it just got to the point where, like, things would happen with her. And I would be looking after her. I would be doing what needed to be done. And I would be thinking, like, fuck you for this. Fuck you for making me do this. I don't want to have to do this for you. You've never fucking done it for me. You know? And I didn't have, like, the heart in the moment to be like, no, fuck you. But it massively contributed to why it was, like, relatively easy for me to be like, fuck this, I'm going no contact. So my storage, each time it's run out, when I film again, despite having deleted everything off my phone, there is less space. So each segment is getting shorter and shorter before I have to, like, do it all again. And I can't fucking do it again tonight. So I do have, like, a good little bit left on my list, but this is already going to be longer than my usual videos, I think. I hope. Fingers crossed. So if you want, like, a bit of a part 2, let me know. If you're enjoying these longer videos, let me know. If you like the longer videos more so than the short ones. I'd love some, like, user feedback, to be honest with you. Like, I feel like I get quite comfy and quite settled in what I do, and, like, that's good and fine and all, but also, like, if there's something you prefer or something you like, please do let me know on this video. Don't constantly give me constructive criticism, but I would appreciate it here if you've watched this far. Like, I assume you probably have some thoughts. I'd also love thoughts on the actual video topic and any experiences you have are similar. Like, whatever you have to say, I would really like to hear it in the comment section down below. If you want to see more of this content, let me know, and also like and subscribe. You can also find me over on TikTok or Instagram, and you can also find me on Code for Your Patreon if you want to help me out financially. I do still have Otis's vet trip coming up. I'm really incredibly fucking anxious about that. I started feeling nauseous as soon as I fucking said it. He's probably going to need a scan that's going to cost me a little bit over £400. Technically, for one of the very rare times in my life, I technically do have that money, but it's also the deposit to my house that I'm meant to be moving into in, like, 2 weeks. So I would ideally not be using that for not my deposit. I don't really know what I'm going to do, but they've made it sound like Otis could, like, be really ill, and I just won't know if I don't get any scans, so I'm actually, like, completely petrified. But that's not actually your problem, so, like, do what you want. Like, I don't want to put pressure on people, but I am also, like, constantly like, do I need to just set up a GoFundMe that's, like, help me stay alive because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing and I'm terrified? Like, so yeah, there's that. You don't have to do anything. Anything anyone does helps massively, and I very much appreciate it, but also no one has to do anything. I make free content because I want it to be free for people, because I want it to help people, hopefully. I've gotten better at being able to say that, but I also still just feel, like, absolutely pathetic saying, like, I want my content to help people. I don't know why, because I see other people say that. I don't think anything negative of them. I'm like, yeah, good for you, like, that's nice of you. Like, I don't know why my opinion... I think some things about my mother might explain why my opinion of myself is so low, actually. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you have a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I will see you again in a couple of days.